What's up, Bucks fans? My name is Ryan Kostrowski. I'm here with my main man, Brad. We're going to do a little playoff breakdown of the Bucks versus the Pistons. We got that starting up for us on Sunday. We've been waiting for this for a while. Obviously, the Bucks getting the 1 seed has kind of been a conclusion for a few weeks. So we've just been waiting for the second season to start.
Yeah, it's been at times tough to watch these last couple of weeks because you're just waiting for the playoffs to kick in. But now that they're here, let's hopefully they do some special things here.
I hope so, too. I love the draw that we got, and we're going to get into this in a little bit more detail, but I really feel like the Eastern Conference playoffs worked out really well for what teams that we're going to face. So we're in a good spot. Ultimately, if we can make it to the Eastern Conference final, you're going to get a tough team you're going to go up against, but it broke well for Milwaukee the way that it closed out. So we could definitely be thankful for that.
I would agree 100%. So looking forward to this.
All right, guys, if you're new to the station, obviously it's still pretty new. We're here to talk, Bucks, Brewers, and Packers, all things Wisconsin sports related. Maybe I'll even watch a little bit more Badgers this year so I can talk about that with some sort of education. Not really been a college sports guy as much, but if you want more videos around the Wisconsin professional teams, subscribe to the channel. And anybody who's kind enough, we do sincerely appreciate the thumbs up, just like our man Borat or David Hasselhoff would do. You give the Pistons any chance in this series?
I don't. Maybe they get one game, and to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised that they try to punch Milwaukee in the mouth and steal game one. But I mean, even if that happens, I see the Bucks taking at least in 5.
I would think that 5 is the worst case scenario. This is a good matchup for Milwaukee for a multitude of reasons. Number one, they're just a lot better than Detroit. Detroit doesn't have that playoff tested superstar or like that guy you feel like can go nuts. Their best offensive player, Blake Griffin, he's hurt. He missed games down the stretch as they were fighting because he couldn't get out there to play. So the one guy who's capable of going nuts, and we're not even that worried about Blake if he was healthy. He ain't healthy, guys. He is not himself. And this is just one of the spots where Milwaukee really lucked out. If I had to put money down on anything, I would bet the sweep. I see 4-1 being worst case scenario.
I agree. I mean, I'm just saying that as I could see it happening that Detroit steals one. But I mean, if it's a sweep, that definitely doesn't surprise me whatsoever.
Not at all. It's great to get kind of a bye in round one because I don't know exactly when Mirotic has come back. We don't have a firm date on that. But if we could get Mirotic back with even just 1 or 2 games left in the series, that would be great. It's kind of like a warm-up. Get him back, get him acclimated. I view this series almost like an extended practice. We also don't have a firm date on Malcolm Brogdon, but hopefully we can get him back sometimes within the second series. So if we can get through that one, we get him ready for the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, getting Brogdon back will be huge. So hopefully that is in the second round, as long as the Bucks advance, which we all assume they will. And then, like you said, Mirotic, that'll be a big one. If he can come back at all during the series to get a warm-up, and get that rust off and start hitting those 3-pointers, he'll just have more confidence come the second round.
Yeah, you nailed it right there. I think it's most important for guys who are jump shooters to get a game or 2 under their belt because shooting in a game situation versus just, tossing up trays at practice, it's 2 totally different situations. And that is somebody who needs to have a game or 2 under his belt, like you put it, to knock the rust off. So, again, I don't think Milwaukee really could have asked for much more out of a first quarter or first round draw. I was looking as the Magic and the Miami Heat were 2 potential draws that they might get as the season was closing out. And those were 2 teams I didn't want to play. Now, ultimately, Milwaukee was going to win in 6 games or less against either of those teams, but they would have played hard. They would have played good defense, and they would have made things harder on Milwaukee than you would have wanted. The Pistons really are the absolute best spot for us to be, so I feel that we're really fortunate. We played them 4 times this year. We swept. 3 of the games weren't even close. In fact, 2 of them we won by 23 points. There was 1 close game in there. But as Milwaukee has been doing most of the season in close games, they won that one.
Yeah, I mean, this team has, they just put it down. I mean, they've had so many double-digit wins this year. It's hard not to see them have that in every game this series.
Right. And for some of you maybe who didn't catch that, Milwaukee is historically great this season. I can't remember where they rank, but it's definitely in the top 10 all time. And it was 40-some wins by double digits or more. And I think that while history doesn't always repeat itself, if you're looking for a reason to feel like they could go on and be champions, every other team in history who's won this many games by double digits has ended up being the champion at the end of the year.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about. It's just Milwaukee in a championship game, period, is just crazy to think about. So,
Right. Well, we're both in our late 30s, and we have never seen a Milwaukee franchise play in any kind of championship setting. We really thought the Brewers might get there. Now, I get the Brewers went to the World Series when we were like 3 or 4 years old, but did you catch that?
no, I think I was too busy walking around and pooping my diaper. So,
Yeah. Pretty sure my parents put my ass to bed before those games started, and I don't think I
yeah.
would have been too interested even if they were on, and I was awake. So this is really, really cool. Great time for the city of Milwaukee. Great time for the state of Wisconsin. This is the most fun it's been to be a Bucks and or Brewers fan. I know the Brewers just got swept out in Anaheim, but let's not read too much into it. We were in the 7th game last year of the National League series. Why can't I think of the name?
NLCS.
Thank you very much, Bradley.
You're welcome.
And we got a really good shot at minimum to go to the Eastern Conference Finals this year. So here's a question for you, Brad. If we go to the Eastern Conference Finals this year, and let's say we lose to Philly or Toronto in 7 games, do you consider this season a success or a failure?
Wow. I think you have to consider it a success only because they were picked to be better this year, but no one had an idea of how good they were going to be under Bud. And I think they've just kind of exceeded expectations. And now everyone's like, oh, we got to get to the finals. But I do think if they do happen to lose in the Eastern Conference Finals, it's still a successful season.
I agree with you 100%. And this is actually something, I know you came over to my house when we watched the opening round or the first game of the NLCS last year.
Yeah.
And talking about the Brewers versus the Dodgers. And when they lost Game 7 to LA, a lot of people were disappointed. I was one of them. We had a right to be disappointed. Things looked like they were going our way. You don't give up that home run to Justin Turner in Game 2. Milwaukee probably ends up winning that series, and it is a disappointment. But when you vastly move past what you were expected to do for that season, it is tough to take a step back. But at the end of the year and think, man, this really was a good year. So if Milwaukee can make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, go up against a Toronto or Philly, and lose a very competitive series, I still think you have to view this season as a win, guys, because Giannis Antetokounmpo has gotten better every single year, and he's only 24 years old.
Yeah, let that blow your mind, right? I mean, this guy, watching him just improve every year, and then they're like, oh, yeah, and Giannis is only 24, and you're just like, oh, my God, this guy still got a lot of years in front of him.
Absolutely. Now, we might lose Middleton at the end of the year. There's no guarantee he's signed, but we got Bledsoe. We still got Brogdon. I think you have to make re-signing Brook Lopez a priority as well. And there is some young talent on this team. Sterling Brown has been truly impressive down the stretch. I love Malcolm Brogdon. Can't wait to get him back. I really hope we're able to maintain Middleton. I just don't know that we will be. I feel like somebody might offer him a max offer somewhere else.
Yeah, well, here's a question for you then. Isn't Klay Thompson due contract up at the end of this year?
I would love Klay Thompson.
That's what I'm – because if he's available – and there was always these rumors the last couple of years that the Bucks were looking to trade for him, and Middleton was part of that trade. I don't know if you heard that. I've heard that. And now if they're free agents, I mean, who do you take, Middleton, or do you take Klay Thompson?
Look, I would take Klay Thompson over Chris Middleton, and from just a player perspective, they're very similar. Middleton's a little bit better at creating his own shot. Klay Thompson is a better shooter, although they're both okay at both of those things. So while Klay Thompson is just known as like a spot-up, catch and shoot type of player, he can create his own shot, but he just happens to play with KD and Steph, so he never has to. You'd rather have KD taking an ISO shot.
Yeah, exactly.
So I would love Klay Thompson. He brings that championship experience. And as great as of a shooter as Chris Middleton is, we've seen Klay Thompson get hot to a point that, he wears out the opposing team running around trying to cover him all day long. I would love Klay Thompson. I don't know if we have any realistic shot at getting him, but I would love to see him in the green next year.
Yeah, I think it would be an awesome pickup. Not that I want to see Middleton go, but I mean, if it came down to it and he was available and Middleton wasn't, I'd take him in a heartbeat.
Fortunately, the way that this team is set up, I don't think you need Chris Middleton to succeed. Obviously, Giannis kind of turning into like that LeBron, Westbrook, and Harden mold. You need the ball in his hand as much as possible. And you really just need to surround him with D and 3 guys. And that is something that Middleton does really well. He's an excellent shooter. He's a very good defensive player. Crazy to think at one point in his career, Middleton was known as only a defensive player, that he had no offensive game. Now he's probably our best ISO player on the roster. So I hope he sticks around. I just don't know that we're going to be able to maintain him.
Yeah, because it's going to be tough to pay all those guys.
Right. Yeah, I understand guys going somewhere else to get paid. It's cool when you see guys take a hometown discount. You've seen your boy Tom Brady do it. We
Yep.
saw Ozzy Albies do it yesterday for the Atlanta Braves.
And Acuna did too.
Yeah,
For the
right.
Braves.
Definitely. But, I understand somebody wanting to get paid, man. Like you have a very small portion of your life where you're able to, bring in that kind of a money. And some of you might be looking, well, what's the difference between 80 and 100 million? Well, it's $20 million. And if you spend it wisely, how many more generations of your family can you set up that way? And I'm not saying all these guys spend their money wisely, but I strike Chris as a pretty smart guy. And I don't think he's one that's going to go out and there just blow it on jewelry and cars.
Yeah, I agree.
So I don't know. I hope we can maintain him. I don't know if it's going to be plausible given who else we're going to need to pay as well. And I don't know if they have him as a priority. And Sterling Brown could play.
He can. He's really stepped up these last couple of weeks with everyone injured too, which has been good to see. And that only gives him confidence going into the playoffs.
Right? And Connaughton can play. So we got filling guys on the wings. Now, neither of them is good as Middleton, but they definitely bring some game to the situation. So here's my question for you. We've kind of talked about the Pistons already. Did you have somebody the last couple of weeks that you were hoping the Bucks would be able to get in round one?
I was leaning towards the Pistons as my number one, so that worked out great. The other team I thought was the Hornets. I thought they were another team that we could handle pretty well.
I agree. I was kind of looking. I agree. I was happy we got the Pistons. They're a little beat up right now too, and everything that goes along with it. I don't think we have any trouble playing defense against them. I think they struggle to score against us. And then the Hornets and the Nets were two teams that I wouldn't have been scared of at all. Two more offensive-oriented teams that I felt like we could have done whatever we wanted to against. I just was happy we didn't have to play the Orlando Magic or the Miami Heat, two defensive-oriented teams that would just taken a lot of energy out of you.
Yeah, it's not that the Bucks would have. I felt confident if they played the Heat or Magic that they would have won. But I think, like you said before, it would have went 6 games instead of this possibly being a sweep against the Pistons. And they would have made them work more. They would have put more wear on their bodies, which would have made the next round that much more tougher.
So, breaking down the Eastern Conference playoffs going further, I think it's a foregone conclusion Milwaukee wins. And as much as I would love to see the Pacers take out the Boston Celtics, without Victor Oladipo, they just don't have the firepower, in my opinion. So I think ultimately we meet up with Boston in round 2, which, pause me if I'm putting words in your mouth, but I'm pretty sure you agree with that.
I agree. I like almost verbatim. I so want the Pistons to win, or not the Pistons, I'm sorry, the Pacers to win. But I know that it's going to be Boston. But I wouldn't be surprised if that series does go 6, maybe even 7 games, because they could beat up on each other.
Exactly. That is a great spot for us to get them because Boston, while being more talented and being everybody's preseason darling, I don't even really know how people are still latching on to thinking Boston's going to turn it on. They always say the best player usually wins in the playoffs. Well, Boston, out of the 4 teams on the up top, they got the 4th best player. Giannis and Embiid and Kawhi are all, to me, significantly better than Kyrie Irving.
Oh, I agree. 100%. Kyrie had his moment with Cleveland that made everyone think he was better than he is, in my opinion.
Kyrie is one of the best isolation players in the game right now. I think you got to put James Harden as number 1. And then after that, Kevin Durant's pretty darn good just because he is 7 feet tall and could pull up from 30, as Stephen A. Smith would say. But Kyrie, pound for pound, inch for inch, he could iso ball with any of them, but he doesn't make his teammates better. He's not a great defender or anything like that. So there's really holes in his game. Whereas Embiid is so good defensively and such a force physically that he just can take a game over. Kawhi Leonard, top, defensive player in the league, good iso ball, can shoot the 3, very, very good all-around player. And I think we know all about Giannis. I'm not that worried about the Boston Celtics. And I think the extra thing that Milwaukee gets when they're going to go up against them, Marcus Smart now is likely out for this series.
Yeah, I mean, that only helps for sure. I mean, I know Terry Rozier kind of ripped him up a little bit last year, but he was on a whole different level than he is right now.
He also won't play that much against Milwaukee.
Right, because Kyrie will be there. So,
right. And they're going to lean on Gordon Hayward and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. The thing that's great, and I don't know if everybody knows this, I know you know that Marcus Smart is a top perimeter defender. Pound for pound, one of the best defensive players in the league. He's also one of the, if not the most important person on Boston when it comes to be the emotional leader of this team. So while Kyrie's their best player talent-wise, your best player and the guy who leads the team from an emotional perspective aren't always the same two guys. And that's Marcus Smart a lot of the time for Boston.
That it is. You can't even argue that. You can see that when he's on the court, what he does for that team.
I mean, the tenacity that he brings as far as a defender, and that's great because what that does is that takes him off a guy like Bledsoe. That allows Bledsoe to create a lot easier. I'd so much rather have Bledsoe trying to force the issue against Kyrie Irving than I am have him Marcus Smart on him, or it opens up Chris Middleton, whoever it might be. So this is what I was kind of alluding to in the beginning. The path for Milwaukee is really, really bright right now. You get what we agree is the ideal matchup in round one. And then we're going to get a Boston team very likely without its emotional leader.
Yeah, I mean, it sets up well. If they get, well, I don't want to say win, but if they get Boston, which we're thinking is going to happen, I can see that series still going 6 games. I don't think it gets pushed to 7.
No, and I think another advantage Milwaukee has is they're the best road team in basketball this year. Boston has really struggled away from Boston. They've had a lot of issues winning on the road. So I think a very likely scenario is Milwaukee wins the first 2. And at that point, a team that's already had some chemistry issues, that's missing their emotional leader, is going to be down on themselves. Now, again, I'd probably expect them to win game 3, but I think Milwaukee steals game 4, then, we're up 3-1. I think we could close it out in 5.
Yeah, it's very possible, especially going back to the form.
Exactly. So I don't know, man. There's a lot to be excited about right now. I think we match up with all these teams really well. I think the fact that we were able to beat Philly in Philly, to just put that doubt in the back of their mind, because that's a team that scares me. I think we kind of talked about this one last time we met up. You kind of are a little bit more scared of Toronto. I'm a little bit more scared of Philly. I think we both agree it's really close, though.
Very close. And I think, I think I watched the second half of that game, and they were behind the whole time. I mean, like by 5 to 8 every time. When they took the lead, you could see on their faces the confidence they got in Philly, taking the lead in that game, and then closing it down. You could just see them walking off the court going, all right, we can do this if we got to play these guys here.
Absolutely. And you can take a guy like Ryan Hollins saying Giannis isn't a closer, and he can shove it right up his ass right there, as he was again today, talking smack again about how anybody who thinks that Giannis is the MVP over James Harden doesn't know what they're talking about. And then Will Kane, who I rarely agree with, put him in his place, along with oh man, I can't think of the other gentleman's name right now. For me, Giannis is the MVP, and I think there's a lot of cases for James Harden, and I like what James Harden is doing. But this is the difference between, Brad and I are DFS guys, Daily Fantasy Sports. James Harden is great at putting up numbers, but putting up numbers because of volume is not the same as, being the most valuable player. Is it Giannis's fault that they win all these games by double digits and he doesn't need to be playing down the stretch?
No, not at all. It just shows how much actually he probably helps them get to that point, so he doesn't have to play down the stretch.
Right? That shouldn't be a negative effect on somebody. Skip Bayless used to say that. He's like, well, when is Aaron Rodgers ever closing? And people say, well, why is it his fault that he scores 3 touchdowns in the beginning part of the game so that they're up in games? Is that a negative thing that your guy has to wait till the last minute to do something? Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like that shouldn't be something you hold as a detriment to somebody, that they play 4 or 5 less minutes a game and they shoot 9 times less a game and they shoot it 18% more effectively from the field.
Yeah, I agree. Did you see the photo that the Bucks put out on Facebook and Instagram and everything of Bango? Like the "Change My Mind" meme of him.
Yeah, I think I saw you shared it on Facebook.
Yeah, it was great. Giannis is the MVP. Change my mind.
No, you're all over the meme game, and if you guys want to know this, just follow Brad on Facebook because he's constantly sharing the best NFL memes and the best NBA memes. I know that's what you're doing when you're bored at work some days, and I get at least 2 chuckles a day out of sports-related memes that you're sharing. Yeah,
Twitter too, at Fantasy Tips Brad.
All right, well, I think that's about covers it because we'll get back on here to talk about more of this as the playoffs progress. I think we see this one pretty eye to eye. It's kind of hard not to agree on this first series that it's not going to go, 4-1, 4-0 at the very, very least. And the fact that Blake Griffin is not himself right now, that only makes things easier on Milwaukee. Gun to head, I'm predicting the sweep.
Yeah, I would go with a sweep, but like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if it ended up being 5 games. But I don't, like you said, I just don't see how Detroit can, come in and get 1 or get 2 games. There's just no way.
They don't have the offensive firepower. You know what I mean? Like, especially with Blake Griffin being sidelined. Like, Reggie Jackson has his moments, but who's the next guy? Like, I love Drummond, but Drummond's a rebounder.
Yeah, that's pretty much all he is. That's all he is a rebounder. So,
right, I'll give him some credit for being a little bit better at free throws this year. But who else are you scared of? Luke Kennard?
No,
nobody's scared of Luke Kennard. So it's a really good setup for Milwaukee. So I'm absolutely just thrilled that we're going to get it underway. But in all reality, this is like one of those NFL games where your team goes in, is up 21-0 at the end of the first quarter, and you're like, well, this is kind of boring. Like, where's the drama? Where's the suspense? You're not going to get it in this opening round.
No, you're not. But you'll get it in the next round against Boston. There'll be a little bit of it.
It'll be much closer. And then I expect the Eastern Conference Finals to be a dogfight. And
7 games for sure.
I would say that's the best bet. And then moving into the finals, if we can get there, I would assume it would be Golden State, although I do think Houston does have an outside shot to knock them off. I would love to watch Giannis versus Harden in the finals. I'd just like to watch the Bucks playing their period. And if you get to the finals and you lose to Golden State, even if it's in like 5 games, this team is coming, and Golden State is likely disbanding after this year. So the NBA opens right back up.
It sure does. And that's one thing too. And it could be the final now. Let's say it is Milwaukee and Golden State in the finals, and Milwaukee takes it in Game 7 because they have home court advantage. You will definitely see Golden State blow up after this season if that's the case.
Probably. I have a tendency to agree with you on that one, although there would be a small part of me that might think, oh, shit, guys, we got unfinished business. We got to get back there now.
That too.
It's possible, but I think KD's gone. I mean, I don't know if it's true that he's going to New York, but don't you keep hearing that, like, KD to the Knicks is like a done deal?
It sure seems like it.
I'm not sure I believe that. And also, I've heard a couple of analysts break down the fact that they say, like, well, KD might believe that right now in his heart of hearts, but KD changes his mind all the time. So he might think that right now, but they haven't even played the finals yet. Something might change.
Yeah, exactly. So let's just see how that plays out. Excited for these Bucks. I mean, they've been hashtagging it for the last 3 years or so, own the future, and I think the future's now.
I agree. And while I do think we have to have realistic goals that you might have to wait one more year, I think your goal should still be, and I think this is how they feel that they can do it this year.
Yeah, I mean, this team has so much confidence, and it's not cockiness. There's a difference. When you listen to them talk, you see them do interviews, you know how focused they are right now.
Right, and that is a fine line, and I've struggled to walk that line in my personal life a few times, the confidence and the cockiness kind of line. But I would agree, they're confident, and maybe they are a little bit cocky, but they deserve to be. They play together. The team chemistry cannot be understated because that's what a lot of teams don't have. You're not seeing it in Boston right now. I get it, Boston's got a lot of young talent. You're not even seeing it as much in Golden State this year. They're just so talented that, sometimes talent just trumps everything else.
Yeah, and I think Milwaukee is talented and the team chemistry is there, unlike some of the other teams. I mean, I really like their chances. I mean, I heard people saying, let's just be real, it's going to be Golden State no matter what. But I'm not buying it 100%. I mean, until they prove it again, I want to see it happen. So
put it this way. It's been a long time since I would bet the field over Golden State. I might be willing to play that one out to a draw this year. That is, if you gave me Golden State versus the field, it would be like a coin flip to me.
Yeah, I would agree.
So that's how good they are, though, that we're saying like the worst they've been in forever is like maybe a coin flip with the other 15 teams in the playoffs that they might be. It's a pretty dominant damn team right there.
It still is. Yes, it is.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. We'll continue to push out more content. I'll be on here a little bit more going forward. We do daily fantasy sports evaluation full-time over at my other station, DFS 5-Pack. And it's double slates of baseball every day and basketball. So it's just been really busy the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I'll get on here some more, too, so we can talk some more Bucks throughout the playoffs.
Let's do it. We're going to be around for a while.
All right, sounds good. See you guys.